You're listening to the Proposify Biz Chat with Kyle Racki, a podcast for entrepreneurs looking to scale. This episode is brought to you by Proposify, software that streamlines your proposal process, impresses clients, and helps you close more deals. Head to proposify.com to start your free trial today.
This is episode 75 of the Proposify Biz Chat. I am Kyle Racki, and we're talking today about our yearly planning session at Proposify and how you people who are running their own companies can also have yearly planning sessions, what to include in it. I'm joined today by Kevin Springer.
The man, the myth.
Kevin, you're in good spirits today considering the sadness that occurred for you just two evenings ago.
It was sad. The home team couldn't pull it off.
Your beloved Patriots
Yes.
lost the Super Bowl.
Yep.
It was a great game, though.
It was a great game, and I'm happy for Scott. We have a sales guy here who diehard Philly fan. He went to a Phillies game. He went to a Philadelphia game 2 months ago, actually.
Yeah.
Yep. Happy for him. Happy for Nick Foles. You know, second string quarterback comes in. It's a Cinderella story.
It is a Cinderella story.
Yep.
What's his name? Foles?
Nick Foles.
Nick Foles.
Yep.
Crazy. He was a backup.
Yeah, and actually he quit the NFL because he just couldn't make it, and he was camping with his family, and that was when he made the conscious effort to go back to the NFL, and Philadelphia took him on as a second string quarterback.
Wow.
Yep.
Incredible. Now he'll probably get traded.
Yeah, that happened to Brady.
Did it?
Yeah. He was a second or at one time third string quarterback, and Drew Bledsoe went down with an injury. He stepped in and was prepared.
You should have a sports podcast.
Let's do it.
Man, you're just like...
We have a biz chat.
You're like the gift of gab when it comes to sports.
Yep.
So, thankfully, a lot of our listeners are American. Not that only Americans are into football, but it's obviously huge down there. Like most people are into football in the States. But for those who haven't come to this show to talk about sports or listen about sports, let's talk about business. So, a couple of weeks ago, we had our first true yearly planning session. I remember you and I used to, we've been business partners now almost 10 years. We used to have what we called our AGM, which was just sitting in my basement or your basement, drinking rum and eggnog around Christmas time and chatting about the year, but no real structure around it. And we didn't have a leadership team.
But don't underestimate those AGMs. A lot of magic came from that.
A lot of magic we are now. Well, yeah, for sure. On top of the world. But, this was recommended by Dan Martell, our business coach, who we've talked about a few times on the show, about having a yearly planning session where you sit down with your leadership team, map out the next 12 months, and then create a work back schedule, quarterly, monthly goals that you need to hit. He calls it OSA, Outcome Strategy Action. So the year is your outcome. This is what you want for the year. The quarterly goals are your strategic benchmarks, and the actions are kind of the weekly things that you do, your team does every week to hit those goals. So actions might change, strategies sometimes change, but outcome stays the same. So this was a really helpful exercise. We actually covered quite a bit more than just our monthly and yearly goals. We talked about our core values. We talked about our company mission, things that we've never really truly sat down as a group and articulated. I thought it was really helpful.
What I loved about it too is Dan suggested that we rented a place away from the office where we would in the evening spend time together. We cooked breakfast together, broke bread together. It was, Jenny in our office found a fantastic place on the water, right on the ocean, up in Muscatobit Harbor, about a half hour outside the city, and it just makes it more intimate. I thought it was a great suggestion.
Fun fact, because probably most people listening to this, they may not even really know where Nova Scotia is on a map, let alone Muscatobit Harbor. But if you know of Feist, the Canadian singer-songwriter, who's kind of big in the States too, she wrote one of her first big hits was called Mushaboom. And Mushaboom is in Muscatobit.
You should have a music podcast.
That's the thing. How can we mix that, music and sports, together to create the ultimate podcast?
I'm sure we could do that.
Yeah.
Tying some business.
Get somebody who knows about business to come in and talk about that. It was a great location. We've got some pics on. We uploaded those to like Instagram and stuff for anybody who follows us. But you can take a look at the place, see what it looked like. But it was a nice home. And so we did a 2-day planning session. We did first day. We all kind of got there around mid to late morning. Started doing some work on it. Broke for lunch, and then we kept going until I think about 6 o'clock or so. Watched a nice video on YouTube, Simon Sinek talking about leadership, leaders eat last, while we had a beer. And then we just had a good time in the evening. Some people jumped in the hot tub.
It was minus 15 with a wind chill. It was unbelievable. And the hot tub wasn't even close to the house. They had to walk across.
So there's only 2 people on our team, Jonathan and Jenny, who ran out in their bathing suits to jump in the pool. They were nuts.
Yeah.
And you and I were playing guitar near a fire, but it was still so cold. We were just like using our fists to like hammer on the strings.
That lasted one song.
Yeah. We got through Billy Joel's Piano Man. So anyway, it was a great time. And then the next morning, we just kept going on our planning session until about 4 or 5 o'clock. Packed up and went home. I think everybody that I talked to on the leadership team said that it was really kind of refreshing and kind of got them pumped up and feeling like they had direction. And then we just had our Friday all hands meeting where basically we outlined some of the stuff because a lot of the people on our team that weren't there, I think, wanted to hear about it and kind of know what our vision is and what our mission is and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it was really cool. If you run a business and you haven't done that before, highly suggest it. And we're going to go over kind of an outline of some things that you could be including in your planning session. A lot of it, probably the majority of it, I took from the book Traction by Gino Wickman, which is a good read as far as coming up with what he calls an entrepreneurial operating system for your business. So let's go through some of those now.
Sure.
Where would you like to start, Kevin?
Let's start with day one, which is you kind of take a step back and look at the company as a whole, and you start working towards kind of the vision of the company. I thought that was great. And what I like about the way it's structured is we're kind of in a circle in a living room, very comfortable setting with a whiteboard. And you led it. You did a great job leading it with
the first day anyway.
Stimulating conversation, getting things going, and you were a good catalyst to get some good chats going. And what's really important is writing everything down on the whiteboard as we go, and then taking those notes and putting them into a kind of a vision document.
Yeah. Nice thing too is if everybody had a paper and a pen, so when I'd ask a question, instead of people just kind of shouting it out, because then not everybody gets a turn. Some people are more quieter and some are louder. This kind of forced everybody to participate and commit to their answers first, right? So one of them was, so as far as vision go, it's that one's pretty simple. It's if you just look at your company and say, where do you want to be in 10 years? What's your purpose, your reason for existing beyond revenue? Because the problem, revenue goals are very important, but the problem with them, they don't really get people excited, first and foremost. But they also, once you hit them, you're done. Okay, we've completed our mission, right? So some of the best companies in the world have missions that are so lofty that you can't really hit them even in 20, 30 years. And those missions can outlast the founders, the people who started the company. Examples, I can't remember exactly what Elon Musk's is for SpaceX, but it's basically to have colonies living on Mars. It's not something they're going to reach. They're not going to hit that in 1 year, not 5 years, maybe not 10
Maybe
years.
Not his lifetime, but at least it's a vision beyond his years. You never know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, we're not all sending rockets into space and starting colonies on Mars, but, if you look at your business and what you can achieve, it can serve a greater purpose beyond creating wealth for the shareholders, right?
To that point, you had sent some great suggestions on some blog posts from SaaStr, which really tied into what we were trying to achieve, which was to get almost double our ARR. And to do that, historically, most companies have just doubled down on what they're doing now.
Yeah.
And this really was a big focus for us.
Focus was a big theme, because when you look at the company, it feels like we're all doing well, and we are. But if you look in the grand scheme of things, compared to tech giants or even just bigger SaaS companies, it's like we're still pretty small. So it's so easy once you start doing well to either get complacent and just rest on your laurels and sort of stop doing what made you successful to date. And then it's also easy to kind of take the opposite approach and go like, okay, things are great here. Now let's go off and try to build a new product or try to like go after this completely different market. So I think the hardest thing to do sometimes is just to focus on what got you to this point and keep doing it.
Agreed.
Yeah. That was kind of our, I think our plan of attack for this year. I can't remember. So with our mission, where we came out to is that, we really looked at why we started the company. And when we started this, Kevin and I, we were running a moderately unsuccessful web design business. I mean, we had run it for 5 years. We pulled in a salary. We paid our bills with it. We had a small staff. And, I think we did some good things for a while. We learned a lot. But ultimately, we struggled with cash flow. And I've talked about all this many times before. Difficult business model, service model, especially where we lived, small market, not a lot of clients. We didn't really specialize, so it was hard to attract clients from outside the region. There was a lot of things working against us. But when we closed a deal or we got a new client in the door or a client paid their invoice so that we could like make payroll that week, it was a great feeling.
Big time, yeah.
Or if we closed a big deal, I remember once we closed Dow and it was like $100,000 or something, which to us was a very big deal.
What's that chemical that Simon Sinek said gets released into your body when
dopamine?
Yeah, a lot of dopamine when you close a deal.
A lot of dopamine when you close a deal. It's probably, and if you're a salesperson or you're the founder of a small business, man, I can't really think of too many greater hits of dopamine than having your client come to you and go like, okay, we're going to move ahead with the project. Here's your deposit,
So it was worth staying up till 3 a.m. writing that proposal.
Yeah. That's really the feeling that we want to create in all of our customers, and especially ones that some are doing extremely well and we're just helping them save time and create a better process, and then some of them aren't doing as well and maybe they're where we were then and we're helping them keep their lights on, in some small way if we're helping them close a deal faster. So that really is our mission.
Yeah,
we want to do that.
The exact mission we came up was to, where was it? To empower entrepreneurs and businesses to thrive, get their time back, and breathe easier.
Breathe easier, yeah. Yeah, because it's hard to breathe when your bank account's in the red. I remember once you had to drive a couple of times to
pick a checkup.
To pick up a checkup from a client because they were a few hours away. So
they're like, we'll just drop it in the mail, and we're like, well, if that takes 3 or 4 days, payroll will bounce.
Yeah,
I'll jump in the car.
Those were hairy, hairy days. Yeah. We got through them.
Yes, we did.
So that's our mission. One thing I want to talk about is core values. I think for me anyway, this was the most fun exercise that we did. If you really think about as a business, what are your core values? You probably know them somewhat intrinsically as, as the founder. You kind of go like, okay, we are a certain way, but it's pretty hard to articulate it. You hire people based on gut feeling, but you don't really know why. It's hard to put it into words. So the exercise was really to put into words what I think all of us knew about our culture and about our core values. So very, very fun exercise. If you do this with your people on your leadership team, I think everybody will have a blast. So what I did was I said, write down, and I kind of switched it up a little bit from the Gino Wickman book. I said, pick 2 people here in the room and 2 people back at the office. And people that you feel completely fit our company culture, our core values, and if you could clone these people, make an army of them, we would just crush it. We'd crush our 3-year goals in 1 year. So people wrote down names, and then the next question was write down the qualities in these people, why you chose them, why they're such a good fit. Then we went around the room, read them out, and it was really amazing. I wrote them all on the board. Same names coming up all the time, and a lot of similar qualities.
It's great for us, too, to see what these people did, what our leadership team put down, and it was great to see some of these consistents. I guess it was pretty predictable who they'd probably choose, but it was nice to see that.
Yeah.
Back that up.
Totally.
Yeah.
So what were some of those qualities we put down? We had a whole board of them. The hard part is actually narrowing them down.
Oh yeah, we had probably 30 of them up there at one point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So accountability, drive, positivity, integrity,
and empathy, right?
Yeah. Empathy was a big one.
Yeah. So I actually ran it through an anagram generator, and the catchiest thing that I came up with was ADPI. It's an easier way to remember, right? ADPI, okay, accountability, drive, positivity, integrity, and empathy. So drive in terms of, people just getting the job done, going above and beyond, not just kind of waiting for somebody to tell them what to do, like real self-starters. What was the next one? Drive.
Accountability, drive, positivity.
Yeah, people who look for solutions instead of just focusing on why something can't be done.
Yeah, we don't want Captain Cants.
Captain Cants, yeah. Empathy is huge, caring about how customers feel, about how each other,
Yeah.
And integrity, yeah, trustworthy. You can't work with somebody you can't trust, right? So that was what we came up with. We're still kind of we're sitting on them a little bit, and then we're gonna put that in sort of a better format to communicate to the rest of the team. But the nice thing about that is, so this is what Gino Wickman recommends, is you can put them in what they call the people analyzer. So if you're ever looking at hiring somebody, or if somebody on the team isn't working out and it's your job to manage them, it's sometimes hard to know exactly, should I hire this person? Should I let this person go? Should I give them, some time to kind of work on things? So the people analyzer is a really simple way to do that. You kind of put a graph together of each of your core values, and then you just put a plus or minus for the person you're analyzing. Plus is they always embody this core value, plus minus is sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and minus is never. Should never have any negatives, and somebody should never not, show a core value. But if they're having trouble with it, or if it's, if they're like, okay, so for example, positivity, maybe they're positive sometimes, but sometimes they let meetings get out of hand because they're negative energy and they're bringing people down. Well, that's something you have to try to coach out of them, talk to them about it, give them a chance to improve that, and then, take it to the next step if they're repeatedly being asked to, like, okay, listen, man, you're being a bummer. Like, you're bumming everybody out. You're negative all the time. So it kind of gives you this more quantitative way to analyze people. How are we doing for time? Try to keep these not too long. Okay, we got a little bit of time. Do you want to keep going through some of the stuff we covered in the planning session?
We can do that.
What do we have next there, K-Spring?
We went through marketing strategy,
a
3-year picture, 1-year plan, and goals, really.
The thing is, the 3-year picture, it can be very brief. It's really just, where do you think we'll be in revenue? How many people do you think we'll have on the team? Yeah. It doesn't need to be because it's kind of like looking off on the horizon. The further you look, the less detail there is.
We did a bit on product, which was good.
Yeah.
And then we went on, what makes us unique.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we already had this stuff narrowed down pretty much. I can imagine there's some companies that really don't know this stuff, and they'll probably need to spend a lot more time on it. But we've always worked pretty hard, I think, to know really who our target customer is, what makes us unique, what do we really kind of hang our hat on in terms of unique value proposition. So it was good to just kind of go over that, make sure that people who weren't necessarily in marketing understood that, people on the tech side of things or the product side really need to know that.
Also, I find that, we did a branding strategy a couple of years back, and it's just good to go through this exercise to make sure that lines up. Yeah. Sometimes it changes.
Yeah.
The branding approach. And
definitely.
Yeah.
Things change.
Yep.
So that was pretty much day one. We covered all that stuff off. Now, day 2 was getting down into the weeds a little bit more, into the more really, short-term stuff. So it was year plan, where do we want to be in revenue, in order to get that revenue goal, what do our key performance indicators need to be, our metrics? So if you're an agency, now I've actually written a blog post about this in the past. If you look it up, it's KPIs every agency needs to oversee. Agencies sometimes, in general, can get a little bit too, they're not data-driven. They just kind of go like, oh, is there money in the bank? No? Okay, I better get out there and sell. But they're not actually measuring key performance indicators like, utilization rate and all that kind of stuff, profitability metrics. So for a SaaS company, it's a little different. We're looking at churn, customers who leave, net MRR churn, so the revenue we lose through cancellations. We're looking at average revenue per account per month, which you kind of want to make sure is moving up. And ARR, annual recurring revenue, is kind of the big one. So we basically just outlined where we need to be at the end of the year and then created a work back schedule for quarters. So like Q3, if we want to be by this number in Q4, we need to be here by Q3.
Right.
And our metrics need to be here. So that was really it, putting that together.
You talked about rocks.
Yeah.
Compared to pebbles.
Right.
Was key.
So rocks being, these are the projects we need to get done that we think will move those metrics in the right direction, which will in turn move our revenue numbers in the right direction. So we didn't actually plan out rocks for the entire quarter. And I say rocks if you haven't heard that analogy before. It's, you have an empty jar. If you fill it with sand first, then you can't get any rocks inside because the sand fills up all the space. If you put your rocks in first, pour in sand, it will flow around the rocks. Too often we let sand fill our weeks, which in turn fill our months and quarters and years, and we just, at the end of it, you look back and go, geez, what did we get done? Like, we just let day-to-day bullshit kind of get in the way. So, quarterly rock planning is basically picking those 3 to 5 different major initiatives, across different departments and say, like, we need to get this done by Q1 in order to hit that goal. So that's what we decided we were going to do.
Nice.
And the nice thing is, once you get your rocks in place, it keeps, every department head keeps focused on that rock, and then in turn they keep their people focused on that rock. So when it comes down to, should we do this, should we do that, they know that they need to get this big initiative done by the quarter. Then it's easier to say no to things that aren't going to move that initiative ahead.
It's nice getting back to the office too. It's this escape, if you want to call it. I mean, really, it everybody's been very actionable. I noticed when we got back to the office.
Yeah,
it's been great. I mean, Lisa's on there, getting some new salespeople interviewed, and everybody's just really pushing hard.
Yeah,
it seems to be a lot of optimism right now. I like it.
Sometimes you have to push people to commit to something, right? Because we even did this at the planning session. We said, okay, so what are you going to get? What's your big thing that you need to get done by the quarter? And so people tend to naturally want to not commit to things. So they'll say, well, I want to start this process. It's like, no, that's not a thing. Starting something, you can't measure, did I start it? You can only measure, did I finish it, right? Yeah. So sometimes you got to push people a little bit to say, like, no, what are you actually getting done for the quarter? And then they're going, like, okay, well, I'm going to hire this person, or I'm going to get this process finalized. You know what I mean? So I think people like that. People like having a little bit of a push behind them to say, like, no, you got to commit. Because once they commit, then they have to follow through.
And beyond the vision and the goal setting and whatnot, we also, there's some real frank discussions going on. And we did uncover some challenges that people were having in different departments that we didn't realize.
Yeah.
So it's good to hear it firsthand from them.
Oh, totally. And the thing is, when they talk about it, when one person talks about it, everybody else goes, yeah, I have the same problem.
Yep.
But on a week-to-week basis, those department heads aren't all talking together about those things. So one of the parts of the, the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System from Traction, one of those big things in your company is issues and outlining what your issues are. People don't like to talk about issues generally. They like to just stay positive and focus on the good. But it's healthy to kind of, at these yearly and quarterly planning sessions, is go, what are the big problems we're having? What are we all struggling with? Because once you write it down on paper, then it becomes part of that quarterly initiative to say, okay, our big problem is, whatever, quality control or speed, or, like whatever the issues are, you can go, okay, now let's come up with a plan to solve those issues so that hopefully the next quarter that issue isn't there anymore.
Exactly. Because we're actually holding these leaders accountable. So it's nice for us to hear them talk about some of the people they're working with that may be slowing them down or having issues with.
Yeah. And one of the things that came out of this was scorecard. So another part of accountability is we looked at weekly metrics that we can track on a weekly basis. So we talked about churn. There's some other ones in there that maybe aren't big, giant company metrics, but they're important metrics. And if you put them in a scorecard, which we're just using a Google Sheets for, just like a spreadsheet, it's kind of cool if you can pull that number together on a weekly basis fairly easily and look at it every week. So when you have a weekly leadership meeting, you pull up the scorecard and just say, where are we for the week? Everybody's filled in their numbers. Did the number go up this week? Is it down? It's that real-time kind of analytics. It's that look at your business, because if you just go profit loss, that's a lagging indicator. You can only look back at that. You can't really do anything about it. But if it's a weekly metric, you can actually impact that on a weekly basis.
Right. Yeah, rather than waiting quarterly even.
Yeah.
Or even monthly sometimes. You got to get in there and dig weekly. Yeah.
Totally. Good stuff.
Yes.
Probably a lot of information to throw at people. Once again, if you want to dig into this a little bit more, there is a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. Highly recommend reading it if something like this interests you. I'm sure we'll be writing a post about this in the near future. But the key takeaway, I guess, is book off that time, probably in January, I would say, and have a 2-day off-site kind of planning session with your leadership team and go over your goals. Because, if you don't know where you're going, what's that saying about boats? If you don't know where the harbor is, every wind is the wrong wind or something.
You have to adjust your sails constantly, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Very important. We'll leave Kevin to nurse his wounds from the Patriots game. I was giving you shit. Dig.
He knows us New England fans are diehard fans.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes obnoxious, maybe.
You know what? They'll probably be back next year at the
who
Super
knows?
Bowl.
Yeah.
Quite a game, though.
It's all good. Hey,
Okay.
man, Tom Brady, he should have got the MVP. He just set a record, passing record.
That's pretty cool.
505 yards, yeah. For a 40-year-old?
That's across all Super Bowls?
Yep.
Or, yeah.
All
That's
time.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
What a guy. Hope you guys dug this. Let me know what you think. Email me at kyle@proposify.com. And be sure to hit subscribe so you get more content every week. And thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Proposify Biz Chat with Kyle Racki. For more episodes, check us out on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, or Google Play. Click subscribe to get updated on the latest episodes, and be sure to rate and review.